All right, Gearheads, welcome to Speed City. We just watched the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix. This is John Massengale. I have with me Jonathan Green, Les Kaiser, and Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland's going to join us from the grid at Monaco here shortly, probably hit momentarily. So, well, gentlemen, we had a little bit of everything, including an hour delay. Bob Varsha, I want to start with you. What do you think about this race today?
Well, I think it was everything we talked about on our pre-race show about what happens when you have a wet and drying racetrack. Nobody knew what to start on. Tires were being changed on the grid from slicks to intermediates to full wets. And then finally, after that long delay, you said everybody got off, went down the road. Cars started crashing behind the safety car in the early laps, including Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll, and then the big accident for Mick Schumacher that led to a red flag. And along the way, teams had to react in terms of conditions. And, if you listen to the BBC coverage, Red Bull did a beautiful job of strategy. Ferrari, not so much. At one point, Charles Leclerc was screaming at his team because he didn't do what his teammate did. He didn't go right from the full wet tires to the slick tires when it got dry enough. He went full wet, intermediate, and then slick tires, which means he gave up, 24, 25-second pit stop to his teammate. And then when all the undercutting started, he found himself dropping back to fourth place. You can be sure he was extremely frustrated. But up front, great driving in perilous conditions by the top finishers. And even some of the guys further back doing a great job trying to come forward, but they just didn't have the mechanical and tire combination that they needed. Fascinating race, which they always seem to be when it's wet.
What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree with Bob. It was what we said it would be. I have to say, hats off to Sergio Pérez, because the pressure he was under, given who was behind him, given that he'd never, won at Monaco and all the rest of it. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant drive under unbelievable circumstances. I'm watching him on the podium now, literally crying. First Mexican to win, unbelievable stuff. But I have to say it, drop the ball, the Scuderia. It doesn't matter whether Nigel Mansell, Gerhard Berger, Alain Prost, or more recently, Michael Schumacher and many others. Vettel, they just drop the ball on their drivers when their drivers are performing brilliantly. And they did it again today. They let Leclerc down.
Yeah. Don't you suppose in the Red Bull pits, after what happened last week in Spain, where they told Checo Pérez that he had to let his teammate Max Verstappen by twice in that race, now that he had Leclerc behind Verstappen, I wonder if they thought, well, we did what we did to Checo last week. Let's make sure he gets this one to try to make it up to him. And either way, I agree. This is terrific. The first Mexican driver to win. It's obviously an emotional thing for him. His third victory moves him past the iconic Pedro Rodriguez, who won 2 Formula One Grand Prix. And now Checo has his third, and he's the most decorated Mexican driver of all time.
Mm-hmm. I think the real obstacle was having signs between Checo and Max that protected Checo from receiving that team order to have to trade out, because there's no way they were going to have Checo back off a little bit more than he was already doing to let Max get up there. Just the complication of having signs between them created quite a bit of protection for Checo, is the way I view that.
Mm.
Well, we used to talk about Checo being the tire whisperer, one of those guys who could get the most out of the rubber. That's how he got his win in Baku when his teammate blew a tire and crashed. And his other race was in Bahrain or somewhere, and same kind of deal. He just got more out of the rubber than anybody else did. And I think this was another example of that. He's mopping his brow in relief now, but he did just a fabulous job with those tires.
For a guy who didn't have a driver, not that long ago, and was almost not washed up, but he'd had his run, he'd had his shot, and were it not for Albon being poked aside, He's now back in the forefront, and very much, if I were Christian Horner and I was looking at the odds for the next few Grand Prix or the next season ahead, you can't give this championship team orders at the moment. It's too close, and there's going to be too many guys capable of winning. You have to keep Pérez in the game.
Jonathan, that's what I was thinking, what you just said about, he may not even have been in Formula One, but I was thinking that when I was watching him jump out of the car, hold the Mexican flag up, and then fall back into the seat, because, in the back of his head, he's just thinking, this is a dream. I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I mean, I don't know if any of you agree, because, this championship, I mean, obviously you'd say on paper it's between Leclerc and Verstappen, but look what's ahead. There's so much racing to come yet. And now we've got so many guys capable. I mean, I think Magnussen's going to have a win before too long.
Yeah. Not a great day for the Haas team. And man, you know what? Great to see Schumacher. Okay. And that crash looked so bad. When I saw the car in two pieces, I immediately went silent like everybody. But then the commentators reminded me that car, the new car, is designed to break away like that after Grosjean's big fireball crash in Bahrain a couple of years ago. Right. So, but the next thing I thought of was the budget cap for Haas. That's a disaster for them.
Yeah, not good, is it? But it was good to hear Magnussen in his interview with the BBC saying, but we've got a great car, so let's go on to the next Grand Prix. So that, that bodes well.
Yeah, and the other thing in watching these, most of these, I mean, even Magnussen specifically, he was not moving all that fast when it happened. I mean, relative to what we've seen those cars go through already this season, that was where I was certainly took a deep breath. But it is impressive how much can happen at such a slow race. But then, like we said in the earlier show, this is a tight course. No forgiveness.
Oh, zero. I was worried about the cameraman on that corner. I walked past her the other day. Very nice lady.
That's right, Jonathan. You were there 2 weeks ago. What about Leclerc's team radio at the end there?
Yeah, says it all. No words. And I think the words will come later. He's been robbed. He's been absolutely robbed. Bad decision. I mean, either way you look at it, they just didn't help themselves.
Yeah, it's a disaster for Ferrari. And you know what? They had done so good this year, right? I mean, I'm trying to think back of any major problems, major strategy calls or anything, and I don't recall any.
Nope. I mean, but
they've been outrun.
Best lot. Go ahead.
Well, they've been outrun. Verstappen got, what am I trying to say? Leclerc on tires at, where was it? In Saudi, or, he just waited, Imola, where he waited till just a couple of laps to go, and Verstappen got Charles Leclerc on his overuse of the tires. That's something Leclerc's got to work on, and the team has to support him in that effort. They've got to learn about these new for 2022 Pirelli 18-inch tires and what they'll do and what they won't, and how fast they deteriorate and all that. But you're right. They just don't seem to have the complete package.
After an hour delay, I was thinking about the American audience and this guy, what am I watching and what's happening and why aren't I getting any signals? And I think that is part of the problem that Formula One have with the ACM doing the coverage, is because there was no, there'll be a safety car lap in 4 minutes or 5. There was no information for a long time, and we just sat there watching the rain. So I was thinking this isn't good for a TV audience. But then to see the spectacle of the last 20 laps with the 4 best drivers in the world going hell bent for leather against each other, that's good TV.
Yeah, covered by a second. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
I've seen 1-2 like that before at Monaco, but never 4 guys.
Yeah,
with back markers.
And what about at the other end of the spectrum, the Alpine team? I mean, once Ocon got that 5-second penalty for his collision with Hamilton down at Sainte Devote, Alonso was boogieing right along, perhaps to allow his teammate to separate himself from those behind so he wouldn't lose a position at the finish with that 5-second penalty applied. And then Alonso just started, dragging his feet and the top 4 or 5 cars all moved away. Ocon lost the opportunity to get that 5-second gap over those behind and fell out of the points, I believe.
It continues to amaze me how much activity we had today, because so often we do look at Monaco as no passing, but you saw quite a bit of changes. Yes, the rain is what as I think it was Ricardo that said it'll get spicy. Yeah, it definitely did, and that changed everything. We saw strategies practically go out the window, but it was very definitely an exciting race for Monaco.
Sure. And no DRS for most of the race. Not that it mattered.
I mean, DRS was really useless. It was like 2 seconds, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was tiny little DRS window there.
Well,
You almost missed it. Yeah, I was just
Medland in the background.
Yeah, we do have Chris Medland. I didn't hear that. Mr. Medland, how's it going down there?
You might have heard me fighting with people, trying to get my way into the paddock again, because Monaco being a city, every way in and out of where we're meant to work, it gets like crowded by fans, especially now the race is over. So everyone just piles in, and I had to get my elbows out in a different way there. So apologies if my microphone was banging against heads and things right then, but I am now somewhere a little more calm.
There you go.
Well, have you had a chance to see Checo's face, the smile?
Only on TV. They're still over by the podium, or on their way back now to the press conference room back here. So they're not back in the paddock yet compared to the rest of the drivers who are currently going through some of their media duties at the TV pen, where I was stationed earlier, as I explained, when it was raining and we were delaying the start. But on the TV, he looked very happy. And I imagine he's only going to be more so now he gets back. And kind of, I think the realization for a lot of drivers when it kind of hits them that they've done it, that they've finally won the Monaco Grand Prix. It doesn't matter how they do it. It doesn't matter what the race is like. To call the Monaco Grand Prix winner is pretty damn special.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, we were just talking about the opposite of Charles Leclerc and how just despondent, I think is the word for him, and mad.
Well, yeah, understandably so. I mean, it just won't come right for him, will it? Here, that's his first finish. At least he's finally got points on the board at his home race. So I say he's done the race distance, but he still hasn't done that, because obviously it was a shortened race, wasn't it? But he was more frustrated, I think, at the team making those calls, getting them wrong. Clearly, they were scattered. You could tell with the calls they made and how quickly they tried to reverse them, that they were not quite clear on what they were doing. But they'd already kind of missed the boat, hadn't they? Once they let Pérez have 2 laps on intermediates, it was too late. It was kind of give that up and go with what Carlos was doing and try and do just the one stop instead of going on to the inters, which was clearly the quicker tire at the time. But if you miss that window to get onto it, you're in trouble. So yeah, Ferrari with a lot of questions to answer. And it does, it was a theme in the past that their strategy wasn't great. And sadly, it's reared its head here today.
Yeah. And Chris, speaking of the timed race and everything, we did get full points today. Is that right?
We did, yes. Once we got past lap 58, it went to full points. And I think we made it to 62, 63, maybe even 64. So we were about 10 or 15 laps shy of the full distance, but we were far enough into it, over 75%, that it's full points. So, that closes things up quite nicely. Checo now taking, 10 points out of what was Max's lead in the championship. I believe it puts him 15 points behind him, which is pretty impressive.
Well, Chris, I was saying, do you think now that Checo is in a better position to turn around and say, look, this championship's wide open. You've got to let me fight for the championship right now. I'm only 15 points off the lead.
Absolutely. And I think he already was saying that. And I think he was kind of hoping that would happen and expecting that to happen, which is what annoyed him with Barcelona because it was so early. But Christian Horner, to be fair to him, I mean, I don't know how you would have done anything differently today, but he did say to Astini on that grid interview that Pérez was still very much in the frame for the championship. So he would be freely allowed to try and get as many points as he could, as long as it kind of benefited the team as a whole. So today it did. If they'd have moved him out of Max's way, it would have cost the team points overall, which even though Leclerc was behind them, wasn't sensible. So they waited. They didn't make any changes. They stuck with what they had. They let Checo control that race. And yeah, it's brought him back into the frame. And you've got to do that this early, because I don't know if we spoke about it previously, but if Max hits just a bit of misfortune and has a couple of DNFs later in the season, maybe has 2 or 3 where something just goes wrong, and we've seen reliability issues for Red Bull already, then if it just drops them out of contention slightly, but you've got Checo there scoring the points, then you can actually get behind the other driver. It sometimes happens. It happened with Ferrari, didn't it? Yeah. When Ferrari had Kimi Räikkönen win the title, the following year he wasn't on it in the way that Felipe Massa was. It went Massa's way a little bit earlier, so Kimi ended up helping Massa try and win that championship. Sometimes you need to keep both in the race. But as I talked, Charles Leclerc just walked into the Ferrari motorhome next to me, head down. I mean, obviously, all of the guests here are trying to, say hello to or something. He's made sure his head was low so that nobody could catch his eye, and he's gone straight in, not saying a word.
All right. Well, coming up, we're going to have more from Chris in Monaco. But before that, CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected, it's interdependent. And because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cybersecurity by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop even the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats, so you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, not what's trying to stop it. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, we'll be back after a quick message.
Hi guys, this is Pierre Gasly and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to our Formula One Monaco GP post-race show. And it's John Massengill sitting with the team, including Bob Varsha and Chris Medland in Monaco. Chris, I know you were chasing down Gunther, but he was averting his eyes not to see you.
Yeah, he was. He was on the phone at one point, which someone did joke that he was trying to find a sponsor to pay for all the damage that Mick caused today, didn't you? But sorry, I can't remember who made that joke, but I mean, it could be true. Who knows? He's probably explaining it to Gene what went wrong. But yeah, he's in the motorhome, so he's still here. I thought he was going to shoot off tonight, and the delayed race quite often means that people do that. Team members suddenly have to dash because they're much later than they expected to leaving. But at the moment, he's hiding inside. He doesn't want to chat. So I'm going to keep strolling up and down what's half a paddock in Monaco, because Chris, the engineering trucks are the other side.
If that is Gene on the other end of that phone with Gunther, you need to get over there and beat the Drive to Survive folks to listen in on that. That's where he does his best work.
Just stick the mic in, see what we get. I'm sure he'll be fine with it. No, tough day for us, wasn't it? Expensive one, and there are sometimes opportunities, even in a race, even at a track like Monaco in the wet, and it went very, very wrong. But I think he'll probably just be worried about how much it's going to cost, especially in the budget cap era, and if they can get things repaired, rebuilt, ready in time for Baku.
Chris, we were talking about the top four cars, how they were all in such a tight, amazing finish to that race. But behind that, what caught your eye? There was Russell behind that, Norris, Alonso, and Hamilton. It was interesting right behind that.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, George just keeps finishing in the top five, doesn't he? He can't not do it. That was very impressive for them to get that strategy right and get the jump on Lando Norris. I liked that McLaren then tried something differently, and Norris went and got the fastest lap and closed George right down. I think it was 2/10 at the line. So there was a little bit of excitement there in case something was going to happen. But I think realistically, the bit that was catching my eye in the final part of the race, which went very, very Monaco, didn't it? Once it got dry, it was impossible to overtake. But it was Fernando Alonso backing everyone up so much, and the team said there was no issue. He wasn't managing a problem or anything like that. That was just the pace he chose to drive at, and it nobody could get past him. But it did in the end hurt his teammates' chances of getting those points, as you guys were mentioning just now. I don't know I think Ocon would have needed a lot earlier in the race to be kind of had the pace upped so that he could get clear of Valtteri Bottas behind him, because Bottas was still pretty quick. But when it got that late in the race and he's saying, "Oh, can you get Fernando to hurry up so I can pull clear?" It just didn't look like it was possible by that stage. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one that Alpine will probably have to dissect and see if they shot themselves in the foot slightly with that one. But another thing I wanted to pick up, I don't know if anyone else noticed, but we saw on board of Max Verstappen kind of crossing the pit lane exit line, coming out from pit stop ahead of Leclerc. But then the race direction said that they'd noted Sergio Pérez doing that. And then we heard nothing more. So whether they got that wrong in terms of which driver it was, I don't know. But we never saw whether it was investigated, whether they're taking no further action. So I will shout if anything comes in on the FIA documents that suggests that there's still things being looked at there.
You know, in discussing Ocon, he was still 2 spots out of points, but I don't think he would have made it past Sebastian, is I think who his true obstacle was to get into the points. Gasly is arguable, but I don't think he would have got past Vettel. I mean, Ocon and Gasly have had their issues before.
Well, no, so Ocon was actually ahead of them all. It's that his penalty's now been applied that drops him back there in that standing.
It's 5
so
seconds
Ocon was,
put him back.
Yeah, Ocon was running directly behind Hamilton. So he would have been 9th. But then because of the lack of pace from Alonso, that held him up. Then when they crossed the line, everyone was bunched up too much. It dropped him, 3 places, if I'm recalling correctly? Was it 12th he was classified in the end?
Yes. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, costly that. Very costly, but I'll keep my eyes out because I'm not too far from Alpine. So I'll see if Otmar will explain to us what happened there.
Good one.
Well, you know, as we've said for a couple of races now, looking at George Russell so far ahead of Hamilton, what do you make of this? And this is even in Monaco.
Yeah, Lewis did not look comfortable all weekend. Only as qualifying evolved did he look like he was kind of then in the window a bit more, and the red flag didn't play into his hands. But that's when he looked a little bit more on it. But prior to that, yeah, George had the upper hand the whole way through. So, I mean, we won't look at the finishing time gaps right now because, as we mentioned, with Alonso holding Hamilton up, it became a huge gap that it wouldn't have been without that. But that's what happens at Monaco if you don't qualify well enough. And, you know, Hamilton just didn't get it done on his first lap. In Q3, had a lot to do with the second one, was expecting to have a clear run, and it's a risk you take if you don't have one in the bag. So with the red flag, it really, really hurt him.
Hey, Jonathan Green, what do you think about what's beyond that? We went through the top 10 basically, but I mean, look at Ricciardo down in 13th. What other things strike you?
Yeah, I mean, how the mighty have fallen. I mean, you mentioned Ricciardo. I mean, there's been some rumors around about obviously Ricciardo maybe not staying at McLaren, and today he didn't change that for anybody. It wasn't a great performance for the weekend. Hamilton's the one that stands out. He continues to be outdone, if you will, by Russell. You can say the car's not great. You can say what you like, and he's not used to driving a poor car, whereas Russell's just delighted to drive whatever he can that's better than a Williams. But he's getting the better of the car, and that's really how motor racing is judged by. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of Hamilton, but, talk about how motor racing, 1 minute you're a hero, the next minute, you're struggling. And Hamilton just hasn't been a factor all season, and he wasn't again at a place where you would say, okay, this is chance. There is no aero problem. There is no porpoising problem. There is no top speed problem. But it didn't come to be. So I'm looking closely at Hamilton's progress, but Ricciardo versus Norris is not a good look for Daniel. And I don't know if Chris wants to weigh in on this, but there was a lot of rumors also that Schumacher is being looked at potentially by Aston Martin with Audi coming in. They're looking for a German driver. He is a German driver. And evidently Gunther Steiner was heard to say, well, I know, all I can tell you is I've got to have a Ferrari driver in that seat. So it was kind of an offhand comment. But obviously, Mick, forget today's crash. Mick is being looked at for the future, both by Ferrari and whoever else might be interested in him.
Yeah, I think.
And all along,
Ferrari, I was going to say, sorry, from a Ferrari perspective, I think that he needs to do something pretty special to get in there. I don't think that's going to quite happen, but Ferrari are giving him every chance to prove it, because what a story that would be. But from an Aston point of view, his manager / kind of comms PR director, Sabine Kem, who worked with Michael as well in the past, she's been down at Aston quite a bit this weekend. So it could be he's close with Seb. She's close with Seb's press officer Britta. Potentially it was just polite chats regularly, but it was notable that she was down there a lot. So it could have legs.
Along those same lines, I saw Zach Brown from McLaren quoted as saying, and I'm not sure I'll get this right, but with regard to Ricciardo, He said, I'm not going to discuss the contract, but there are things in there that bind us together, and there are things in that contract that don't bind us together, which tends to indicate that perhaps there are options, maybe on both sides, to say, you know what, this isn't working out. So
exactly right, Bob. That contract goes into 23. And this week I saw that stated with Brown as well, that and Daniel Ricciardo kind of brought attention to it just in some of his responses. He didn't have that big smile we usually see around this weekend, but he does. They both have a way to get out of the contract or stay within it. So it's sounds like it's written in pencil.
Hey, Chris, did you hear any dietary suggestions? I heard a rumor that Ricardo was giving dietary suggestions to Zach Brown. Was that just an internet rumor?
That's a parody Twitter account that I'll admit is not something that I'm a massive fan of, but they pretend that they've seen something reported somewhere and put it up and put a source on the bottom, but then that source never exists. And I've been having to fight some fires with that before, actually, where you suddenly find yourself tagged in a completely false tweet that they're trying to be funny with, and people are telling you it's wrong, and you're like, yes, it is wrong. I didn't say that. That is not true at all, and they just think it's funny. So no, because Zach actually is in Indy right now. He'll be focusing very much on the start of 500, which I think is about this second.
And
that's right.
By the way, to add fuel to that, real fuel to that fire, if you like, Pato O'Ward has just signed a new 2-year contract till 25, or 3-year contract with McLaren until 25, as he just about to start the 500, and he has not ruled out potential of Formula One, as we found out at Miami.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that he really wants to do, would like to get himself into, but it remains to be seen, I think, what options come with that. And I don't think there's any guarantees. Speaking of Daniel, he's actually just heading past me right now, recording, I believe, probably his media quote for the press officer there. And yeah, he doesn't look particularly happy. This is where it's tough for drivers, I'll admit. It's very busy in here, and Daniel there is getting hounded for photos and people wanting selfies with him. And, he's just had a really tough afternoon, and he's clearly not smiling, but he's having to put it on for the cameras because, fans are demanding right now. So that must be tough for these drivers to have a really tough one and then, be asked to be at your best. Not easy at all.
Yeah, I think we could actually hear the cameras clicking. Well, all right, gentlemen, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll continue with more from Chris in Monaco, and we'll continue to break down the Monaco Grand Prix.
Hi, this is Gene Haas, and this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to the show. We got Bob Varsha, Jonathan Green, Les Kaiser, myself, John Massingill. We got Chris Medland in Monaco. Chris, is there anybody worth interviewing within earshot or eye shot?
Sadly not. Gunther's still hiding from me. I tried to speak to Omar Zafna and was told he's already on a plane, so I told you people get out of here quickly. And as I said, Charles Leclerc, when I hid away, I'm going to try and get Mattia Bonotto, actually. He was kind enough to speak to us last week after a tough one. I don't know if he'll do it 2 weeks in a row, but I'll keep my eyes peeled for him when he comes back to the Ferrari motorhome and see if he'll have a word. But at the moment, it's a very full paddock with guests and not that many drivers or team bosses. So I will keep hanging around and trying to annoy people, which is what I do best.
So, folks,
Chris,
remember that.
Did you spot any celebrities this year? We haven't talked about superstars.
There was a few. I think Serena Williams was here. Saw quite a few footballers, soccer players, that is. So Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who's a Barcelona striker. Saw Chris Gale, the West Indies legendary cricketer, who I was going to try and get on the grid, but it was raining hard, and I decided to talk to a team member instead in Andreas Seidel. So, there was quite a few out there on the grid. Obviously, we got Patrick Dempsey on the first part of the show, which was really cool to do.
That's true.
There was a few around, but and we got Liam Cunningham as well, didn't we? Managed to get him on from Game of Thrones. But there's a few that come to this race a lot. Kit Harington as well comes to this race all the time. There's a lot of them just pick this as a favourite. And I imagine it's not to do with the on-track action all that often. Although, admittedly, for any guests that do manage to come, you can get the closest to any race car or any Formula One car here in Monaco. So if you've got a good VIP pass, you're going to make use of it here. So I can understand why they would pick this one.
And also,
I thought with the Cannes Film Festival just Cannes wrapped up yesterday. I thought maybe some of the Tom Cruises and so on in the world would come show up on the grid at Monaco. Of course, they're a little bit shy when it comes to rain.
Well, yeah, and Tom Cruise isn't exactly tall Skyzy, so I imagine he might have been harder to spot in there. But I believe they're off promoting it at the new Top Gun. So yeah, that would have been cool to have there. But to be fair, didn't actually see that many film stars. It was a lot of sportsmen and musicians, but Monaco still brings them out. I'd say if we're being competitive, I'd say Miami edged it this year.
Hey, Chris. So what about today as a whole? We came into the weekend with the potential, with Monaco in jeopardy, the rumors and discussions. But I mean, today the rain was exciting at first, but it sure was a long delay, and that didn't help us at all. But what about today as a whole?
I think we've seen actually some things that need fixing. I think there's a lot that could be done better in terms of how long it took to start the race or restart the race after a delay. All of that sort of stuff where, it was a bit of a pain to see, the track conditions was suddenly good and it was suddenly okay. But we weren't ready to go racing again. So I've actually seen someone who's going to be happy. And I don't know if he'll just give us one quick word, but Lando Norris is walking down. Lando, how happy are you with how your race went?
I'm in the middle. I lost out to the Merc, which is a bit frustrating, but it's also conditions where it's very easy to one lap less and we wouldn't have done. So comes and goes sometimes in these conditions, so I'm not complaining. Easy can get them back next time. So got the race out of the way, good points, fastest lap as well, which is always a bonus. So I'm happy.
How do you feel?
Well, you can hear I'm not 100% still, but I'm almost there. So I'll be ready for Baku.
Thank you, Lando. So let's say we've got a driver. And he's been really struggling with tonsillitis, but that's the first time I've actually seen him in the flesh since Barcelona. And he's looking a heck of a lot better now than he was.
Fastest lap, pretty cool.
Exactly, yeah. And he lost 1 point in the end to George in that sense. George gets 10 points, doesn't he, for fifth? Lando 8, but then with the extra lap, fastest lap point, he scores 9. So a position lost, but only 1 point lost.
Tell him the solution to tonsillitis is to have them out.
He might have to now, to be honest. There won't have been the time in between races, but maybe that's what he's going to go and do in between.
Jonathan, what else struck you about today?
Just how competitive it was. Usually we say Monaco's the lottery, but really what happened, it was Ferrari versus Red Bull, as it has been all season. So I think, we're going to see more and more of that. And I'm really enjoying this season as a wide open 4-man stroke 6-car battle for the championship.
Yep. Speaking of the Drivers' Championship, let's take a quick look at the driver standings. Verstappen's lead is now 120. He's got 125, Leclerc 116. Pérez now within 15 points at 110, and George Russell behind him at 84, and Sainz at 83, basically tied with Russell. So very interesting driver standings right now. And I think probably the most interesting thing to me is thinking about, we touched on this, but where Pérez and Verstappen stand as far as the team goes. But Jonathan, what about how Leclerc, looking ahead? I mean, the car looked crazy fast coming into the weekend, right? But what about how this affects him mentally? I mean, he's been pretty strong lately mentally.
Yeah, Bob talked about this. I talked about the pressure that was on him this weekend, and I agree with Bob. He's not the kind of guy. You saw that one look of complete and utter disbelief when he was at the back of during the wreck, where he couldn't believe he'd been let down as much as he had. But he got back onto it. He got a good result. He lost some points, but he didn't lose a massive load to Verstappen. He's not going to crack, despite whatever craziness Ferrari throw at him. And I think he knows that growing up the way he has and knowing Ferrari and being effectively half Latin himself, growing up in Monaco a little bit. I think, he understands what he's dealing with and how the Italians work. And I don't fear for him as a Ferrari driver. I think Carlos Sainz would probably have more problems with Ferrari messing about than Leclerc would. He's his own man. He is confident in his own abilities, and he showed it in qualifying. He should have won this race, and I think he'll go to Baku more determined. I don't doubt he will suddenly have a crisis of confidence that they're not behind him.
I think he'll also have a terrific car under him in Baku. This is going to be another one of those races where the top speed of the Red Bull against the agility and the low speed corners that Ferrari handles so well, it should make that a terrific showdown. And I think you're right. I think that Charles will get the bit right back between his teeth, as it were. And given that Sainz drove so well this weekend, they'll be back strong. I don't think there's much doubt about that. The thing that sticks with me about this race, and I hate to keep going back and beating up on the Alpine team, but with Alonso going so slowly at the end of the race and costing his teammate to some degree the opportunity to negate that 5-second penalty for the collision with Hamilton, I think it also robbed us of some terrific midfield battles. I think if everybody had been at full song, there would have been a more entertaining midfield fight than there turned out to be, simply because Alonso was in the way.
It's quite funny you guys were chatting just before that there about Charles Leclerc. I managed to get myself in the wrong place at the wrong time there, but as he was just leaving, Stefano Domenicali was waiting for him. Domenicali was in his civvies as well and ready to make a run for it, so he couldn't stop and chat. But Domenicali wanted to console Leclerc. He just had a word in his ear for a little while and a hug. And I think Domenicali's worked for Ferrari before, so he would have loved to have seen a Ferrari win, I'm sure. But certainly the story that would have been Leclerc's home win. So he was, consoling him, had some words for him. And Leclerc already looks a little bit more reflective. As you were saying, it won't crack him. He already looked that kind of rueful smile, but he was engaging with people. He did a couple of photos there. So, he's already, I think, going to be probably speaking the right way. It may well have been, actually, that he was going back to do a few interviews that he'd run away from when he was frustrated. So, as you guys rightly put it, it won't massively affect him, I don't think. He'll be disappointed right now. And by tomorrow morning, he'll be telling us how he's just going to go and win in Baku and claw the points back. And as you said, he only lost a few to Verstappen.
Yeah, it's like any heartbreak, it hurts, but you get over it.
Yeah.
Another thing, the strategies that I thought was interesting was the way the Red Bull and Ferrari teams used the double stack, the pit stop strategy. It worked for Red Bull undercutting and splitting the Ferraris, whereas Ferrari didn't pull it off as well. And our boy Charles Leclerc found himself dropping back to fourth. That plus the fact that he made the extra pit stop going to the intermediate tires. But it was a real pit stop battle, and we haven't seen that kind of double stacking by two teams in a long time.
Yeah, good point.
Hey, Chris, we just have about a little bit of time, minute and a half, 2 minutes left. But you and I talked about on the Wednesday show about Mercedes, how much better they looked after the Spanish Grand Prix. But not so, Russell, once again, like you mentioned, in fifth, but not a great weekend for Mercedes.
No, we spoke to Toto, didn't we, pre-race, and he kind of was aware that they were not strong here and didn't seem overly upset about that, really. I think he was realistic. He was asked on the Sunday night. It's interesting. George Russell thought they'd be okay here when he was talking about things in Barcelona before that race. But now, after that race, George was maybe a little bit more reflective, and Toto was the one really trying to talk it down and say, no, I don't think we'll be that strong. And that's exactly how it panned out, actually. So I think they were prepared for it. They were ready for it. And that meant that he was philosophical before the race. He's probably pretty happy now. The fact that Russell got ahead of Norris and again, top five, he'll be pretty pleased with that.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We are out of time. We had an exciting Monaco Grand Prix. We had rain. 4 cars battling for a possible win at the end, with Checo Pérez winning for the first time in Monaco. Congrats to him. And it was really, overall, I have to say, it was pretty exciting. It got a little processional, but have to say it was exciting. And I want to thanks to Bob Varsha, Chris Medland, Jonathan Green, Les Kaiser. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for all of those tuning in on YouTube and Facebook. And if you want to learn more about us and see where our content is, go to our website, speedcitybroadcast.com, and we'll talk to you next Sunday.
Ciao, y'all.
Happy trail.